So today, super agenda. So we're bringing the fun through our autumn season of conferences to everybody here on the webinar. So we're joined today by Maurice. Bryan, everybody's got a wave when they say your name. That's the thing to do. Maurice, Bryan, Jordan, Keeran, Rudy, Russ, Andrew. Hello. Thanks for joining us today.
We're also joined by Ben, since he didn't introduce himself.
Well, this is the cool thing about this webinar, yeah? So we're talking about all the fun stuff that happened at Workplace Ninjas and MMS. So we're going to talk about our experience. And I wasn't there, so this feels a bit weird. Like, I want to talk about my experience of missing out, but it's all cool.
This is your formal webinar, basically.
It's your formal webinar. This webinar is for you.
We are here for Ben. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for me to know what happened, because I haven't caught up with everybody yet who went.
Along with 264 of your other personal friends.
For those who haven't been, and we super encourage you to try and get to one of these events if you can. Like, amazing opportunity to learn and mix with people in the industry. And like, the sessions themselves are amazing at Workplace Ninja and MMS. We'll talk a little bit about what those events are in a second. But you cannot put a price on the social aspect as well, just like mixing with different people, even talking outside of sessions and just talking about geeky stuff, like you're in heaven. So Patch My PC showed up. We went to Workplace Ninjas. We're going to talk about our experience there. So Workplace Ninja Summit happened in Switzerland towards the end of September. Workplace Ninjas is an amazing conference. Switzerland is an amazing country. You may have heard the Workplace Ninja term coined as well, because they also run user groups, and they've got like nearly a dozen worldwide. So if you can find one local and you're able to join it, get yourself along to it. So we're going to be talking about our experience at Workplace Ninjas, and also another one of our favorites events is MMS. So this time, MMS Music City Edition was in Nashville, mid-October. Another great community-focused event, talking about all the cool stuff, like Config Manager and Intune and Entra and security, all the stuff you need to know to come away from to be able to do your job better. As I said, I did not go to either of these this year. I was nailed down at home. I had some responsibilities at home to take care of. So I'm really excited to hear what the folks on the webinar here today got up to. I did hear some shenanigans, which they're probably not going to share today. Which leads me nicely into Rudy.
Oh, no shenanigans. Okay, well, that's a nice announcement. Well,
good to have you with us, Rudy. So, you went
nice to be here as well.
Did you go to both events?
Yeah.
Did you go to both events?
Nope, only to Workplace Ninja Switzerland, because the Nashville one was just in the same week as I need to go with the family on holiday, so that was a little bit difficult to match. So yeah, but Workplace Ninjas, in my opinion, that is one of the biggest events in Europe and one of the most loveliest as well. And me and Keeran had one big responsibility, one job to do, is driving the van from Belgium to Switzerland and back, and ensure that the car made it at least to Switzerland and back, because we were bringing all the swag with us. And one thing is for sure, one thing I learned is that Keeran has absolutely no problems to drive on the right side of the road, I think. At least I was constantly shouting at him, right, Keeran, stay on the right. And when we approached a roundabout, I was like, no, not go left, go right, just like normal people do, right? So
we drive on the left. We drive on the left in UK.
Yeah, so, but yeah, we made it over there, and I guess that trip to Switzerland was absolutely fantastic. It was fun, and we also played some music, but I assume Keeran is going to talk about that later on. And
we picked up a hitchhiker as well along the way.
Yeah,
we made a detour into Germany.
Yeah, somehow we went to Germany to pick up DJM, because Wout brought DJM to Germany, and we picked DJM up and drove with the three of us to Switzerland, which was absolutely fun, especially the moment we missed the exit because there was a traffic jam, and we totally ignored the navigation. So we just were like, no exit. We just go stay here. It will be probably fine. Well, we ended up 2 hours just sitting there because the whole highway was closed. So we need to take a hill detour. But again, it was a fun trip to Switzerland. But once we were in Switzerland and once we were at the Workplace Ninjas, I learned a couple of things. And one of the first things I learned at the event itself and the sessions that Microsoft presented is that Microsoft is finally showing some transparency, at least. Normally in the past, they were pretty closed if what they announced or what they were going to tell us, because it's a lot of secret stuff going on and they don't like to share that information. And apparently at Workplace Ninjas, I'm not sure if it also was shared at MMS, but at Workplace Ninjas, they shared a lot of internal details about everything that's coming. So I was like, that's the first time I'm hearing that. So one of the things that they were announcing was the Intune management extension that was going to rely on the Teams platform, which I never heard before. So
Teams?
What does that even mean? So what do you mean? The IME that relies on the Teams platform?
Yeah, do you know the green and red light thing? So I was like, well, if Intune maybe has
data.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe if from the Intune portal we are going to get a red or green online status thing that's really real time, showing if there's a connection from the device to Intune. At least that's how I see it. And the funny thing is the DLL files are already in the Intune management extension right now. So the moment he was telling it, I was like, well, now I'm interested. So I will probably post a blog explaining how it's going to look like in a week or so. But that's one of the things they shared. I was like, well, that's something I don't hear every day. So yeah, in my opinion, it was really, really awesome. And well, I also presented 2 sessions at Workplace Ninjas. So next slide, I think. Oh, we are already there. Okay.
Okay.
Was the
yeah, just the second one.
Yeah. Well, I presented 2 sessions. That's the main difference between MMS and Workplace Ninjas. At Workplace Ninjas, you often get 5 sessions. So Maurice, he got a lot of sessions at MMS. Well, at the Workplace Ninjas, I was very happy that I only got 2 of them. One of them was how Microsoft is moving from the OMA DM stack, the Windows Phone provider, to something new called MMPC, and how it's going to rely on the Windows declared configuration service. So we finally get a declared stuff inside Windows, which we didn't have for years. So if you want to read more about that and all the stuff I presented at the Workplace Ninja session, I also wrote something about it on the PatchMapC blog and the Patch and Rent video. And the other session I did was just showing how Microsoft was pushing new features and how every single Microsoft feature Microsoft released could have broken your whole deployment of devices or all your devices at once. So that was more a fun session, like, well, if you had enabled this feature from day one, when Microsoft really wanted you to have enabled it, it would have broken all of your devices at once. So I was just showing how it would look like on all of your devices. So again, Workplace Ninja Switzerland, it was, in my opinion, a perfect event. I would wanted to go to Nashville, but I assume the other guys are going to present and talk about Nashville as well. So I guess the next speaker in line then.
Rudy, did you enjoy the public spas in Baden in Switzerland?
No.
Did you go enjoy them?
No, but you did, I guess.
Yeah, well, they were. I didn't even know they existed. It was the second time we were there. It was the second time that this event was in Baden, Switzerland, and they apparently just had like public spas, and by like spas mean kind of like hot tubby kind of things. There's
it was a cultural event, wasn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it was a culture.
Enjoying
that's one of the pictures we don't need to share, right?
No.
We did
no pictures were taken, but let's just say, public PDA is not a problem in hot tubs in Baden. It was awkward.
Did your suitcase come back smelling sulfurous?
No, it was fine.
It was fine.
Amazing.
It was a little bit smelly.
Rudy, you touched on something awesome, and like I think this is definitely a thing for going to conferences in person. You know, it's all these little back channel conversations you hear, like, oh, this new feature might be coming out. Like somebody may have heard of something, and the rest of the world hasn't. But then those whispers cross, conversations across tables, and
Yeah, especially during the speaker dinner, I somehow I ended up next to two Microsoft employees. I'm not going to mention them by name, but it was a pretty funny conversation because I was drinking a couple of beers, and the moment I'm starting to drink, I was just constantly firing at them, asking questions, and they were like, "I just want to eat, Rudy." I was like, "No. I have a list of questions, and we're going to go one by one by one by one by one." And he was like, "No." And he even looked at my slides because I was like, "We're going to talk about the OMA DM2 WinDC MMPC," and he was like, "Are you?" I was, "Yes." He was like, "Can I see your slides because we are also going to talk about that?" He was like, "Oh, I think we need to change our slides then." So it's those kinds of events and just mingling with the community and people. It will get you way more information than
100%. Good lessons learned. Thank you, sir. Maurice, I think did you attend both events?
No, I didn't, Ben. I usually go to Workplace Ninja as well, but it clashed with my youngest daughter's birthday this year, so that took priority. Of course.
So what's this hat thing
should.
like? You need to explain that because some people might not understand the hat thing.
Oh, the hat thing. Yeah. Okay, so
does it really need an explanation? I mean, it just feels like we should let the mystery live on.
It wasn't like, what is a hat?
At this point.
Okay, what's the hat? Okay, the big thing. The thing with MMS is they always give us something really nice and meaningful to wear, right? So in this case, we got cowboy hats because we're in Nashville, and we got like a blue blazer there that Bryan's demonstrating, or the red blazer that Jordan is demonstrating. I, in fact, had the blue one from Nashville, so I took the red one this time. Although it has been put away since. So excuse me. Why? Because I would wear it everywhere, so my wife maybe put it away.
I would thought you'd do the schoolroom with it on.
I'm not as brave as Bryan.
You describe it very well, especially in that red jacket. I'm looking at the photos on your slide, and it looks like you had a pretty amazing time.
Yeah. It was good fun. I mean, it was great fun. I did 5 sessions there, so I had the unfortunate thing of just throwing a bunch of sessions and then they all stuck. But yeah, I did sessions with David Brook, with Jan Kettelskanke, Adam Nichols, and Andy Rivas as well from Microsoft. So it was a fun time. Great venue, actually. This is the first time they've run the Nashville one. I actually really think that they could just move the entire MMS to Nashville and I would just be happy rather than spending a week of my life in the mall. But, it was really, really good. And weather was lovely. Food was great.
What's it like event size-wise compared to the Mall of America event? Comparable, a bit smaller?
It's like...
Yeah.
Mall of America is like 700 to
900, I think. Yeah, it's like...
It's not 900.
I thought it was like isn't it 800 or something like that? I thought it was 800 or 900.
Like 750-ish, I think. Okay. They tap out at how many like hotel rooms and just how many people you could fit in there. So I think it's like 750 or so. Is where this one was. Usually it's around 350. It's roughly half.
I think this was the biggest one that they've done of the second kind of middle tier MMSs. So
it's over half of them were new attendees too.
More than 50% were new attendees, which is really interesting because then you get in that kind of extra audience feedback that you haven't heard previously. And like it actually came up in the sessions I did, like because we were thinking, focusing around like stuff like hybrid. And like some of the key takeaways I had was basically most of the room when they were asked questions, who's doing hybrid? All the hands went up and okay, put your hand down. Who's doing enter join only? And it was very, very few.
Wow.
Which is surprising. But like when you start talking to the attendees and they're telling you about like, well, my job is siloed. I can't do this. I can't manage group policies. So they're saying I have to stick everything there. And we have these applications and they can't use, non-domain join machines. This kind of thing that we kind of hear quite a lot until you actually try it and it works. So it was interesting because I did a session with Adam Nichols where we're talking about that whole, going to cloud native side of things. And he had one example with a very large customer who said, it just can't be done. Kind of went there 3 days later, showed them it could be done, and their security team kind of came in and showed that it was the most secure machine they'd ever tested compared to their group policy entry join or sorry, Active Directory join machines. So that was a bit of an eye opener, really.
What were your kind of key takeaways from from the audience interactions with your sessions and things? And was there like a common? We really want to know how this thing in Intune works, or
yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people when they use something new, they kick back, right? They say it's slow, or it doesn't do this, doesn't do that. And in general, it's about understanding. So I heard a lot of people saying since they moved workloads to Windows updates out to Intune, their WAN is hammered. And they're looking into this. They don't know how delivery optimization works, for instance. They've had these things called distribution points, and that just did the job. And now all of a sudden there's caching and it's not working. And why is it working? Because security's getting in the way. And again, that goes back to the siloed IT department kind of thing. If people aren't talking together, it's kind of difficult, right? To take what you had on-prem and just throw it into the cloud and assume everything worked.
100%.
And then, of course, other things like managing mobile phones, right? It's either that they just did it or they didn't. And a state-by-state thing, because I was presenting with a guy, we're from Europe, and it's well, usually it's no problem. But in the US, there were state-by-state laws and things like that that get in the way. And it was interesting because he was saying, oh, you just do it. And I was saying, hold on a minute, Jan, you can't just do it because there's reasons.
How do you approach that from even think about approaching that from a policy point of view? Is that just wild? Are you talking different policies for different states, or is it clear no, we can't manage it?
No, it's not that no, we can't manage it, I believe, and Jordan would fill me in better, but I can see him looking. But in certain states, say if I tell you I want to protect the data so there was a session about just protecting data on devices, right? And MAM is that one thing that will do that, but in some states, if I tell you're going to have to install an application to service that MAM request, I'm going to have to pay you for the privilege.
Okay.
So that gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah. So, for example, states like California in the U.S., states like Michigan as well, actually. New York has one. Florida has one. Texas has one. There's a couple of the square states that are out west as well that have it. Basically, is if you have certain requirements or certain levels or certain gotchas where you can open yourself up to regulatory reasons, where either you have to either provide a physical phone for it, depending on the role and nature, or you have to provide a stipend, basically. This has also started to become a thing since COVID as well. Is internet stipends for people as people have moved to remote work from home, where states have actually started to regulate and require that if you're going to do work from home, that you have to include a internet stipend in as part of it, as part of state legislature. You actually see this sometimes as well over in the EU too. There are certain components of it specifically within the EU space where you have to provide a phone or provide different pieces of technology access to it the company pays for if you want to be able to do that for it, which makes sense, right? It makes sense from a practicality perspective, but it is something to consider as part of your rollout process to your end users is what are you opening yourselves up to, or what is the risk to it? Doesn't mean don't do it, right? It just means calculate, understand the risk, and know there might be pushback and how you have to deal with those pushback scenarios.
Yeah, spot on. Thanks, Jordan. So, Maurice, key takeaways then, you've got some great bullets there. What would you want the audience today to know?
The one thing I would say, because we got a lot of great feedback on this, is going beyond your comfort zone, right? So the last thing there about building function apps, doing lots of stuff with PowerShell. And not every platform is ideal, right? It doesn't do everything you want it to do, but you can do things to make it do the thing that you want it to do. And that would kind of inspired a lot of people to say, okay, well, I've used this logging component before, or I've done kind of device renaming stuff in Azure through a function app. Learn that stuff. And if you're using it already, just be aware, there are changes coming along. So some of the HTTP API collector and so on changing. So you need to move to DCR rules and so on. But just if you can think of it, you can do it. Learn PowerShell, learn how to use function apps, learn security around it, like managed service identities and graph API permissions. And then you can basically, the world is your oyster for that kind of stuff.
Nice.
That's my key thing.
It's interesting, like the learning resources. So the function apps and logic apps, you still, like, even when you think about using those, you're still thinking, right, so do I still need to know PowerShell, or like, do I still need to fully understand graphs to get this stuff to work? Because I'm sure like half the world are just using some kind of AI and just doing like free text questions, like how many of my apps installed on this device and how many failed and which ones failed, go and delete them all and then go and buy those people an ice cream, and that doesn't quite work like that, does it?
It can and it can't, right? I mean, AI is great and everything. AI can be a time saver. Don't throw it into AI and expect it to be completely right all the time, because it's just not going to be right. So try it yourself first and let AI kind of supplement what you're doing. But always bear in mind like the security of the thing. So, don't just give it all graph permissions and think, hey, it'll do everything for me. Because if that function gets compromised, yeah, sure, it can do really, really nasty stuff.
Yeah. Good advice. Thanks for sharing your experience, Maurice.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Bryan, you graced the stage at both events?
Yeah,
and the pool and the
all of them. Yes, the public pool, the not public pool. It was all great. Absolutely. So I just want to apologize to Texas for my hat. Wearing the headphones just don't fit under.
Is it the right way round?
No, it's just sitting on top of my headphones. It's sitting way too high. I'd probably get my, Robert kindly warned me I'd probably get my ass kicked.
You're probably going to get shot.
Well, that was likely anyways, Keeran.
I have to say, Bryan, you did look very odd sitting in the hot tub in Switzerland with your hat on. That was yeah.
I also just want to highlight the not public pool concerns me, and I'm worried that I'm going to get yet another cease and desist letter titled specifically to Bryan to put in a binder that's going to show up here soon. That I just kind of keep down here under my desk. The stack is getting large. I'm running out of room for cease and desist for you, Bryan.
Yeah, well, keep the folder. You got a folder. It shall grow. So yeah, I was really lucky enough to go to both. It was interesting. It felt like Microsoft, like having attended both, it felt like, in previous years, Microsoft really showed up really large at MMS, and they were there. But last year and this year at Workplace Ninjas in Switzerland, they had like 30 to like 35 to 40 people there. Like it was kind of crazy for the amount of people that were at the event. So it was really interesting, and I mean, honestly, I would say that at Workplace Ninjas was the place that they really kind of really showed up large and bared their soul, so to speak, in terms of like, here's what we are thinking and here's what we're working on. So for me, I'm going to dig into the slide. Like, what did I take away? I mean, this is a really weird and bespoke thing, but like Jeff Gilbert and Steve Jessicks at MMS did a session on moving to Autopatch, and so I'm like, well, that's interesting. I wonder what they found. And one of the things they called out, a lot of what they said, I was like, okay, that makes sense. One of the things they said, you have to completely disable software updates in Config Manager or via group policy before you can move to Autopatch. And I thought, well, that's not right. In fact, Ben and I have dug into all of this too many times, more times than we want to talk about, right? Like more times than we want to admit of like, wait a minute, how does this all work? And can you set up dual scan and scan source? And I was like, this should work. But then they pointed to, something in the docs that really says, create a custom client setting in Config Manager that's disable software update agent. Now, the reason that's kind of concerning, and the reason Ben and I have dug into it, is because the design has always been, there's no official third-party packaging in Intune or Autopatch, and so like, hey, you could always keep Config Manager around and use that update model. And he reached out to Aria. She's like, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, yeah, but it's what the docs say. So that's interesting. If anyone is moving to Autopatch, just kind of I'm not actually sure what the truth of that is, and I'd love to. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it because it just doesn't make any sense. And in fact, the internal docs are contradictory to this. There's another doc that says, "Hey, yeah, no, scan sources, and this is a supported scenario." And now Autopatch seems to be saying it's not.
I definitely tested this, and then I was trying to find my notes before the webinar so I could paste something in so we could use it and say that this is not the source of truth for Autopatch. But yeah,
right.
From my own testing, it was the software update settings are fine because we want dual scan. We want scanning SWSS with third parties still in some scenarios, but we still want the Windows Update agent to be able to communicate with the Windows Update service. The only thing I remember that it wouldn't allow me to onboard into the Autopatch service unless I did do the whole code management, correctly and have the sliders correct for the client. And so maybe it lines up with what you're saying here.
No, because they're saying it different. They're saying if you go to code management, you have to, in order to support code management with Autopatch, you have to take the extra step of actually creating a custom client setting that fully disables software updates and config managers. It's not, which is not code management, right? They're basically saying you can't actually have. Well, sorry, code management has always been like a workload is one place or the other, right? But for software updates, there had been this kind of middle ground of like, well, you can take first-party updates from Intune, so that's your monthly CUs and your feature updates, but you could also take other third-party stuff from config manager still. That was like from right the get-go, that was a supported scenario, and I think it still is. But as I understand it, Autopatch has like some remediation scripts that they'll run, and like they have stuff that they will do, and part of what they want to see is all of the reg keys for Woo and Windows Update, but also specifically WSS. Like they want those cleaned out, which technically I don't think is a technical requirement, but also I know for that team a big part of the problem they have is some of the stuff that config manager has left around. So I kind of understood why they have that as a requirement, but it's just weird to me because it wasn't supposed to be a requirement, and then it is. So anyways, that was news to me. That was interesting. So if you are moving to, from config manager to Intune, and very specifically to Autopatch, and you were hoping to have, Patch My PC's third-party patches still come to config manager, and the reason you might do that is that you want the actual update, the monthly update experience, not using the app model Intune. I'm confused. Maybe that won't work, or Autopatch simply won't allow you to enroll. I'm a little confused. I don't know, Russ, if you remember any of that stuff. I know you were on that team.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. I think the biggest issue for rolling on Autopatch was often, leftover group policy settings pointed to some WSUS server. So there was certainly a lot of issues with the client being polluted. But I mean, I think it was always clear that software application deployment via configuration manager was fine. That's nothing to do with the patch workload. So I think we need to get that squared away.
Yeah, there's absolutely some policy that will break it. So things like do not connect to internet locations, I think was one of the policies, and that absolutely will stop the client from talking to the Windows Update service.
Can confirm. Anyways, enough about that. The other thing that was interesting was hearing they're sort of talking about the Intune suite, and they talked about EPM, and they added support for elevating the existing users. So before that, they kind of touted a lot like, as part of the security model of, well, we're going to create a virtual user and you're going to elevate this thing in that user, not the actual user that's requesting access. And that makes it more secure. And I never got to the point of testing it out, but I'm always like, well, that's going to get weird, isn't it? Because we have a lot of experience with apps of like the user profile matters. And so how does that all work? And I know, Jordan, you have some slides on it, so I'm going to let you talk about that for real, because you actually went and, made pretty slides and graph, but that was interesting to me.
Whoa. Pretty, okay, that's pretty. A stretch, but I mean, I did get a screenshot. More effort than I put into it.
Rudy has a blog on this, right? So you can go find it on Patch My PC's website. Anyways, and Jordan's going to talk a little bit more about that, and I'll let Rudy jump in on that point instead of here. I did notice this, and I actually had to go back and look at the slides. They're touting that Win32 apps are going to get script-based installers. It's just a single slide, and they didn't seem to talk a lot about it. So Don't know exactly what they mean, other than instead of just having what they showed was clearly, well, instead of just having you can put in your command line that points to an exe or an MSI or a bat file or whatever it is. They have a whole PowerShell scripting environment or UI for you to write a script that does the actual install. Interested to know, and I'd be interested to know in the chat if anyone can think of some real straightforward, what are the use cases here where pre and post scripts aren't enough, you need a scripted install. I wonder if that's to make PSADT easier in Intune or not, that kind of thing. I don't know. Even internally, I'm starting discussions with, well, exactly, Matt. That's what PSADT does. So it's I don't know why, and you could do PSADT before this. So I'm a little confused as what problem they're trying to solve by spending effort supporting scripts as installers within Intune Win32 apps. But they said it's coming. I'm even talking internally to our teams. It's does this open up anything for us that wasn't open before? I'm not really convinced because, like you said, right, if you're wrapping in PSADT now, this doesn't really change much.
The only I'm thinking of one edge case where you can maybe use copy item PowerShell command so you use a PowerShell script and you just dump data on disk because it's part of a larger payload for a huge app coming down the line that went over the 32 gig limit for a Win32 app or something.
Yeah.
Edge case.
Yes.
Just use a PowerShell script to dump some stuff on disk.
Yeah, Scott, I guess Scott raises out that might be back compat with config manager. I'm trying to think but config manager didn't really work that way either. It didn't give you, you could always do a script based install. You just call PowerShell.exe or whatever, command.exe and you feed it the script, right? So you could always do this. So I'm not 100% sure what problem they're trying to solve. And I don't know, we have some MVPs on this call. I haven't heard them talk about that. So that was kind of news for me that they were even thinking about this. I don't know, Rudy, Jordan, Dan.
I'm not an MVP anymore, but I have a theory for it. I was, and I have a theory about it. I think part of it has to do with EAM for it.
They didn't
more to do with
this.
the customizations, right? So if you have the concept inside of EAM, you basically needed to add a way to do customizations to the apps on the fly for it along the way. And the construct inside of EAM is still a Win32 app for it. And so to avoid the processing power or the challenge of how do we rewrap these, right? Because otherwise they end up rewrapping all the apps, right? Otherwise there just can be distinct reusable pieces for it. Well, if people want to have any type of customization attached to it on either side, they have to do it. And so why not just propagate it across? That's my assumption, at least. That's my theory and assumption from it.
I guess it's just weird because I know where you're going, but at the end of the day, you can always do a script because you just make a script part of the content and you call the script in the command line. It was never I can't imagine what I'm trying to think of what they're unblocking that we couldn't do before, and I guess I'm struggling to get it. Well, yeah. So Matt, you call it pre and post scripts. So I guess I'm always confused because I work at PassMyPC and we have pre and post scripts for a long time. Does Win32 apps not natively support pre and post scripts yet? Sorry, I'm an idiot. It's just been so long. Oh, you can't?
Kind of. It kind of does, and to a degree, right? It's a Win32 app, right? So if you have a Win32 app and you stick something inside of it and you run something before you run something else, and then you run something after that, right?
I get it.
You've theoretically created it interior to the Win32 app.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, but this starts to make sense. But I'm saying the native Win32 app model doesn't have pre and post scripts baked into it.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, I've just been to PassMyPC so long that I just sometimes forget that the app model is so bad. Okay, well then that makes sense to me. Yeah. If you can't do pre and post scripts without having to go do something else.
Not without rebuilding the Win32 app. Yeah, you have to rebuild the Win32 app, which that goes back to the whole EAM thing, right? For it, if you want to attach customizations to it, right?
I'm with you. That unlocks it. Thanks. Sorry. It's just my own idiocracy.
At least Azure licensing is easy.
Yeah, I know, right? The next one, I can't, I didn't learn anything other than, it's just as bad as I thought it was. Chad Litch and Christopher Turner, they did a great session at MMS on just trying to understand Azure licensing. And I really think it needed to be a beer session because you need something to cry into and it might as well be a beer. But it was, it was informative. It was great. If they ever do it again, you should definitely go check it out because it was to me I learned a bunch. I just
So
it's
use somebody else's
but
credit
also,
card. It was a
what's that?
TLDR. Use somebody else's
Yes.
credit card. It was a TLDR.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So moving on, like the other thing that we obviously talked a lot about was AI and Copilot. At least Microsoft wanted to talk a lot about that. And I would say, like, hey, we're still not sure what we're looking for. And what I mean by that is, you see a lot of demos and like, well, you could do this, you can do that. And maybe I'm biased because I'm like, oh, like we talked about earlier, hey, you could do things in PowerShell on the graph. And sometimes the graph can be confusing, but I was like, I could automate this. I could do these things. I know how to get that data. And so I'm still looking for like that killer feature of Copilot for Intune. That's like, oh, like this is just something I just don't know how I would have. This is a data I don't know how I would have gotten any other way. I don't know how I would have summarized all of this into this. And I've yet to just see Microsoft come out with that demo. If anybody else thinks they have, like, I'm here for it. Like, I kind of want to hear, like, oh, what can you do with Copilot that just is completely impossible to do otherwise? I'm just kind of waited for it. And I just feel like I hear that from the audience as well. Like, I don't hear people being like, oh, absolutely, I'm going to go slap my money down for that, right? Like, I'm waiting for that killer feature.
I can sense, Bryan.
What's that, Russ?
So I can sense, Bryan, you're not a believer on that. I think the one thing, I think the interop, obviously they're pushing the agentic area in terms of an agent going across the different plugins for like the security defender, pulling information from there and then orchestrating into Intune. So I think there's the beginnings of, hey, we can see this situation, and this is the machines that needs these updates. I think they've still got to tie the complete workflow so that it's kind of an approval. Okay, I sanction you to go do this task for me. So they're getting there.
And we even talked about this, Russ. Like, we talked about this internally a couple of days ago. Like, Microsoft is starting to use this agentic terminology, and Russ and I and some other people internally talk like, well, when you say agent, that means, like, to me, that means a certain thing. It means like you're going to have some service running in the background that does something on your behalf. Like, that's just what it feels like to me. And that's not when Microsoft says agentic, that's not exactly what they mean. And so I'm still kind of confused. I think when they say it and then they describe it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I thought you meant. And so it's still weird to me.
It is like, there was one interesting aspect there, which was the context. So you think, I think of an agent like running at, under a system context or something like that. They have your agent, you actually sanction your agent to run as yourself, as administrator, and you give it rights to run for a certain length of time, and then you have to reapprove. So I think that makes sense in the sense of auditability, traceability, right? So if it is doing things and querying things and getting data, then you have agreed to do it. So I think that's it's kind of a smart move because it means there is accountability in there, but it isn't quite what you'd expect for an autonomous agent that has its own identity. So there's some interesting. So I think they're still sorting that area out. But I give them credit for for experimenting and trying these things out.
Sure.
Yeah. There's definitely some interesting things that they kind of talked about and alluded to in regard to like the impersonation piece, which I think is interesting, especially in the data privacy space for it, right? And within the context of everybody's favorite thing, PIM, right? Because now you have to figure out and solve around, well, how, if I'm going to allow this thing to act as me or to go do this thing as me, it can only act and do this thing as me when I have those permissions for that period of time for it along the way. So it adds and increases continuing complexity along the way for it. I think what's interesting about that then is where it starts to get into the data privacy pieces for it, right? Of validating who can access what and access that data at large scale for it. Starts to get interesting. And to kind of what you were saying earlier, like in the looking for a problem space, Bryan, though, the thing that like I still struggle with at this point is I asked V5 this morning about like, hey, help me make a plan for the next 6 months. And it proceeded to tell me that it was August of 2024 and that it was going to make me a plan for the next 18 months instead for it. And I was like, that's not what I asked. I asked for you to make me a plan for from now till April for this thing. It's like, oh, yep, you're right. That's 6 months. Sorry about it. So to you, what you were saying, Russ, like it has to be with somebody looking at what it's doing and what the logic flows are for it still at this point to validate like, no, everything that I asked you to do makes sense. It's like an intern that's read everything on the internet. And I do mean everything, everything on Reddit, the right advice, the wrong advice, the good and the bad for it. And then it's tried to figure it out. So all of those times where somebody said like, yeah, no, you can just run rm space dash rf and it'll totally fix all your problems. It read all of those, and it doesn't have context necessarily to figure out valid solution or good versus bad necessarily at first.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah. Right. So again, like I want to be super clear. I'm not saying like AI will never have any use case, and I think there's some interesting things that can be done. What I just sense what I sense admins saying, and what I still sense at both these conferences of like, okay, show me something where it's like, oh shit, here's my money, right? I just feel like we're all sitting here with bated breath, being at some point something cool will come out of this. I just don't think we've quite seen it yet. That's the feeling I get. We can debate ad nauseum about whether that's true or not, but I came out of both those events still feeling that way. What it was new though is the second point, right? It's no surprise to anyone on this call, or hopefully nobody who's following anything that Microsoft has done in the last 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. They want you to move to the cloud, right? And it's always been somewhat like, well, if things are safer in the cloud, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's better, all of those things. You should just move to the cloud. Many of you will remember early on, they're like modern, right? Like, well, you got to move to modern because it's modern. It's like, well, why? Well, because it says modern on it, and that's why you move to things, because you're on non-modern now because that's whatever it is, it's not modern, and this is modern, so you have to move to modern. And now they've sort of pivoted to, well, AI is in the cloud, right? So very specifically, like, well, you want to move to the cloud because AI is in the cloud, and the presupposition is you want AI. And again, I hold out that in the near to medium future, there'll be some awesome stuff in there. But they're very specifically linking these things together. You need to get in the cloud, and you do that now, because when we build cool AI stuff, it's not going to be built in Config Manager and Active Directory. So for me, that was a change. I don't know if that felt like a change to anyone else on the call or in the room, but like that to me was, okay, got it. That's how they're going to tie these things together and continue doing the push of, hey, get into cloud native, Entra joined only, the whole kit and caboodle.
So it sounds like from what you're saying, that might be a faster uptake when they give that big wow feature on what AI is going to do for me.
Oh yeah, I totally agree there. Yeah, I mean, it was just interesting that I'm seeing them link it in a way like, oh, you should. Yeah, I just haven't seen them link it together, and they very clearly have done so recently. And then we get to the last point I have, and then I'll give it over to whoever to Russ, who's next. Is especially in Workplace Ninja. I mentioned like there was a larger Microsoft presence. They had a big Q&A. There's like 36, 40 people, 40 people on the stage. And, again, they're kind of trying to talk about these earlier points, they're talking about Copilot, talking about moving to the cloud, right? This is in that kind of AMA or, the big Microsoft push. But when it came time for questions, people were just asking for what I would say are basic things, right? And it kept coming up, and eventually one of the Microsoft presenters, a guy who I genuinely like and respect, was like, hey, prioritize these things for me. What would you have first? And like everyone basically voted for like group policy preferences or the equivalent, right? Like as simple as just let me set a reg key. And the Microsoft team seemed legitimately just completely flabbergasted by this, of like, well, you don't want like these cool things. Like, no, I just need to do sort of basic things. And one of the things I kind of brought up was your own, I had to tell Microsoft, like, your own support team will tell us to set a registry key to fix a problem. This happens all the time. And yet we keep telling you we just need a simple way to set a reg key, and you say, well, why? It's like, well, because you tell us to, your company. So it was interesting. So again, a lot of talk about AI and move to the cloud, and yet when it comes to the AMA, a lot of like, well, we just have some basic gaps that we still need filled. So that was interesting to me. That's me. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I do want to say, Bryan, the Win32 apps, putting scripts in there could solve that problem fairly easily.
Right. Yeah, I know, right?
But
just set
isn't that so heavy-handed? It is, but I feel like everything is just solve it with PowerShell now. So
I
just
know, but
just solve it with PowerShell.
Because it is.
Yeah.
Just write a script for it. It's fine.
yeah, I hate it though, because like, I mean, we all know, well, we know personally at this company what it's like to have hundreds of app policies, right? That brings its own problems, right? If you build 1,000 app policies, even small ones, it may or may not go well for you. Yes, I hear what you're saying. It's technically possible, but your mileage may vary.
That's okay. So what you're saying is, so you ask AI to write you a PowerShell script, set a registry key that you package as a Win32 app and deploy it, but soon we can do native script deployments. So all good.
Back to the future.
Awesome perspective, Bryan. Thanks for sharing.
Back to the future.
Russ,
yes,
for both events?
I'm on. Are you presenting then?
Yeah, there's a second delay, and you'll see it. Come across in a second.
So I didn't do Nashville. I did Switzerland, Baden, Ninjas, which was awesome. I did a bit of impersonation, talking about context personation. So I was impersonating a tourist with Jordan, and we enjoyed the Swiss trains and the overall experience, which was fantastic. And I did a bit of Next Click, impersonating an influencer with Haji. Actually, Haji was so kind to stand in front of our stand and give us some publicity. So that was good to meet with him and be part of the buzz of Switzerland. And then finally, in the session, this is me impersonating a Seahawks fan, because we had a great session. There's a lot of energy around Baden. I spent my time. You want to go to the next slide? I spent my time sort of absorbing what was going on. It's been a little while since I did like some of these bigger, prior many years ago, I did some of the big MMS shows. So just soaking up the atmosphere. What were the highlights for me? I think some of you touched on this in terms of the completeness of Intune. Excuse me, for the enterprise. So Microsoft, announced some partnerships in the it's actually the multi-tenant and the app migration space. I know Keeran's going to talk about our app migration story from Configuration Manager in detail. So it struck me as very pragmatic about recognizing that as people move to both hybrid and cloud native, right? There are some scenarios that need enhanced, that perhaps have gaps, and they're looking to more sort of better together scenario with partners. So without wanting to tout our horn, we kind of feel we're quite well placed here, because not just application migration, but our advanced insights inventory client, providing that extra inventory for Intune. So it's definitely something that Microsoft are getting serious about, as Bryan was alluding to, about moving to cloud native, and they're looking at these scenarios that are not working for particularly large enterprises. So that's a good thing, and I think we're very much part of that, understanding what those gaps are for customers. So the second one, more Security Copilot. Anything Bryan didn't say. So that was it's interesting to me. Like, terminology remains a big thing here. So the Intune Copilot Explorer. So again, overloading explorers, overloading copilots. So they've had this out for a little bit, but essentially you type in a natural language expression, and Copilot will match that to a KQL query. It will run it, and then it will render with a little bit of AI explanation of summary of the results. And then those results are actually rendered within Intune, so that you can do other things with those devices. You can export them.
I agree with you there, Russ. It was funny when they talked about Explorer. I was like, well, let me go find Explorer. And I was like, where is it? It's like, oh, it's like right there, but you just kind of ignore the first. It was like, I just ignored that. It was funny. I read the thing. It was like, oh, Explorer, what's this? It was like, I've never seen it. It's like, oh, it's right there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, and it's not just Intune. It's also it's the Defender is using that same terminology and the same paradigm. So it is becoming a thing, yet another word, we have to figure out the context, the meaning. We talked about agentic. There was a good session actually, which Microsoft was present for, which was a partner consultant session where they did some tips and tricks for using Security Copilot. They delved into debugging policies. So when you've got an Intune policy and you've got like globules of settings, then it actually did quite a decent summary of saying, hey, what does this policy actually do? Tell me the essence of it. The interesting thing is you could do some of that by exporting it and putting it into Win365 Copilot, but Security Copilot has access to the data. So I think we're seeing trying to figure out what is the most practical, what is the most useful aspect of this. So I think that is an evolving space. Obviously, the cost model still an issue, still expensive, but you can tweak it. So you're probably aware that there's these units which you pay hourly for, but you can tweak it in a pay-as-you-go model. I know, Ben, we've been playing around with that. So at least you only get charged when you're using it, particularly, which is useful when you're actually experimentation. So I know that's something that we're doing internally and still looking at opportunities here.
And it's okay because you won't be the first person if you try and spin up some Security Copilot and not too sure what you're clicking, and then you really keep a tight eye on what's happening with consumption in Azure for your security compute units. So I spent a couple of $100 without even realizing it, just because I was playing around with the thing. Actually, it's more $300 and above. So I think as a company, we were talking yesterday, weren't we, Russ? Like, how can we help people demystify this whole what is an SCU, what is the security compute capacity, how does that work with Copilot? And then the thing you're just saying, what does that mean when that shows up in something like Intune in that Explorer node? And like trying to tie it all together so people just know where to start with the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing I will say in terms of playing about with it is what tends to be demoed is the experience within the Azure portal, within the Intune portal. If you go to what's called the Standalone Security Copilot, which is basically a web page, then you can actually see all of the plugins. You can switch them on and off. You can see a lot more. A lot more was actually going on. And you also get a prompt library, so you can store prompts. So that is, I would say, more friendly. Even though it's more geeky, it's actually more friendly, I find, to use that. So definitely I would suggest using that as well as the more sort of manicured, curated experience you see within Intune and Defender. So moving on, the last point was again just getting the sort of mood of what was being talked about. There was definitely, certainly from Microsoft and other vendors, the small, medium business space focused on managed solution partners. There was Microsoft was co-presenting with some MSPs. They were pushing M365 Business Premium, which I think they've just added that to the auto-patch SKUs. So they were kind of making a play for that, and also trying to upgrade people to E5.
I've had my finger off the pulse. Do we have proactive remediations in Business Premium yet?
No, we do not.
Maurice might know. We don't.
Well, and that whole thing is funny to me because people keep pushing wanting things to be in Business Premium, which I totally get, right? I get why people want it. But then what do? They also complain about, well, once I have 301, I can never move to 301 because there's too much in Business Premium, and E3 is way more expensive for a fraction of the things, and there's no way I'm going to pay for E5. So like I totally get why in the last, ever since it existed, a lot of the MVPs that we know keep pushing to get, well, is it in Business Premium? It's got to be in Business Premium. That's great. It's fine until you have more than 300 devices. And then you are faced with a conundrum. And I think people literally start just creating multiple companies because they can't afford the 301st device. Tell me I'm wrong.
That makes sense. Yeah. What else did I have on that? Let's see. I think the final thing was There was some interesting sessions where there was, I'll call Script Fest, of had to get your PowerShell to talk with Winget and create yourself an application catalog, which there was a great session where folks did that, and it was quite involved, and then said, hey, look, much easier just to go to the vendors outside, like ourselves and others, and just use those if you're a large enterprise. But it was interesting to see folks play about in that space. So overall, it was a great experience. A lot of energy there. It was a great venue in Baden, and they put on a great show.
Awesome. Do you like share the same sentiment? Like, you really pick up something special from these conferences in person than you would do trying to watch something online? Do you agree with that sentiment?
I mean, I would say that the interesting thing is there's quite a lot of Swiss, folks, IT folks. There was a number of folks who were local IT vendors. So I definitely got a good opinion from those. I think these European regional conferences, ninjas, are very good for that, right? I think you get more of a slant on particular regional areas and particular issues. Where some of the bigger shows, you get folks from everywhere.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your perspective, Russ. It's awesome to hear. Mindful eye on time. I don't say that just because you're up next, Jordan. Like, I did not.
I see how it is. I see how it is, Ben.
That is not what I meant. But
I can go faster if you want.
No, 1.5 speed is fine.
All right.
You're good. Take your time, sir. Tell us your experience.
All right. So I did get the chance to go to both Workplace Ninja and MMS Nashville. There are a couple of things. I mean, we've chatted a lot about Copilot in general. There's been a huge push for the AI thing, so I didn't throw that up here on the slide. But the big thing I did throw up here, Bryan also stole what I wanted to talk about, but I think it's important enough to talk about it more, which is EPM and the additional bit of adding support for elevating existing users. So if you haven't looked at EPM yet, in general, it's actually like one of the big things as part of the suite. Like, you should look at it. It's interesting the way that they've implemented it. So if you haven't looked at it and don't know anything about it, the kind of long story short is there's a little tiny client that lives basically on there when you first assign a policy called the EPM client. And it gets those policies for it. And then it looks at how it can do elevation into an admin context for specific processes and tasks. Now, what this kind of did in its original implementation was basically, so EPM stands for Endpoint Privilege Manager. And so there was a question there in the chat for that, was what does EPM stand for? And what it did originally was it kind of was almost like LAPS, but LAPS only for a specific process, which is basically like, here's the local admin account. You can be a local admin, but only to do this specific process for it along the way. And what's cool about that was like, you're never an actual administrator for it along the way. What's not cool about that is basically that every developer that would ever try to use this ever would be like, no, this doesn't work for me at all. Same thing for anybody who wants to install any user-based apps that need to register or add specific components into things like path variables or anything like that, because it loses the user context when it would switch tokens along the way. So with the addition now of where you can actually take the user and the user actually gets its process and it's linked specifically to the process it's looking at. I haven't tested it, but supposedly you can't. The first question that I asked about this to somebody was, well, can I use this process to then start other processes as an administrator for it? People said, no, I haven't tested it yet, but I want to go test it. Is that it lets you as a user become an admin for it, for that specific process to do those things. And it's bound to your user profile and your user context of the elevation for it. So let's go next slide really quickly here. So I put this in here just so that people could kind of see it. So it'll be up here in the recording. This is in the docs as well for it. But basically it just kind of highlights, instead of you being a admin virtual account, which Rudy mentioned here, right? It was like, instead of you being an admin virtual account or the local admin or whatever for it, you're actually using your account, your context, your profile, your paths, your environment variables, your runtime preferences for it. This is going to be super big, especially for developers. Like the way that EPM first came out, we have a lot of developers in-house. I know, imagine that, Bryan. And I think that most of them would kind of look at me and go, you're going to do what now? If I tried to be like, I'm going to implement EPM on your machine and make it so that here's how you get admin. They'd go, no, absolutely not along the way. for it. But now where we can actually be like, hey, these users can do it and they can do these specific things and it can actually follow the process thread around the entirety of what you're debugging for it along the way or this, that, the editing for it. There's a lot more opportunities for how that could actually work. There is a security trade-off, but in a lot of scenarios, it's fine. It's very much so reasonable. Let's go next. A couple other things. Config manager, still not dead. No, keep ringing the bell as much as you want. Still not dead.
Not dead.
Not dead yet, sir. Did 2 sessions. I think Sherry's here in the chat. We did 2 sessions on it at there, and between those 2 sessions, had almost 100 people for it. It's almost a fourth of the conference basically that came in and listened to it. And they are still actively using Config Manager in their environments today for it. On the way, it still actively is a tool. It is a thing that it's out there. Another thing that I took away that I started to hear a lot more of is Intune is slightly faster now, much more fast. And what I mean by that, I think Rudy used on a couple of blogs on this. There's been this long-standing perception around the fact that Intune only does things every 8 hours. That's just not true anymore. There are policy pull intervals. Yes, sometimes it is still cloud fast, cloud good. But from a client side of things, it is so much faster now in terms of like how clients actively roll down to machines and how you can actually cause things to happen on devices. There were some cool sessions at MMS and at Nashville where they actually showed some like, here's information about the backend and here's how we're getting faster. And there's continuing investments that seem to be going into that part of the platform for it that were kind of cool to see.
So you're not
and the last thing is, since
we've
been talking about AI, we keep talking about it. One of the cool things is, if you haven't looked at it yet, is Purview. So Purview is now a thing for AI. There's also the DSPM components of it, which is really neat. Because even if you think you aren't using AI, spoiler, you probably are. You've probably got people at your company who are using AI anyways. And the DSPM component for it and enacting policy for it actually has the ability to let you see when people are using other AIs outside of just Copilot M365 or any other features for it. So you can track, well, what questions are they shoving in? Should they be allowed to shove those questions in? What type of data are they sticking into them to ensure that people aren't sticking, let's say, PII or other things like that into external eyes for it? So if you're not using it yet, it's very neat. I hadn't realized it's still in preview at this point for it, but it's very clickable out there along the way. It's neat. You should check it out. The reports that it already has for the types of questions and how you can see what people are using it for so that you can get better use cases for it internally are interesting and neat as well. Check it out. Put a link there in the chat for it or in the slide deck for it. It's neat.
Awesome stuff. Like, I have to hold you to a number here, Jordan, because if something's faster, it's measurable. And if it's measurable, there should be a percentage increase. So you need to tell us how much faster Intune is.
From everything that I've heard / seen, I would say maybe like 25% faster.
Than it was?
Maybe. I like just generalization, right? Across all of the things that I've seen for it, right? Like I've seen some things where we've gone from 8 to 2, right? For a lot of things, and somewhere it's gone from 8 to 4, right? So if 2 is what, a quarter of 8, right? So I guess some areas it's like 75% faster. Supposedly, other areas it's less.
Nice.
You can measure it in complaints, Ben.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
Yeah,
we're going to call this the Jordan speed test. It's going to come with a website, a little dial.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's going to be awesome.
Nothing will keep up with me. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Awesome. Except Andrew. Andrew can keep up with me.
Good perspective, Jordan. As always, thank you for sharing, sir, and thank you for 1.5 times speed. I'm just I want to be respectful of people's time, but we've got a couple of cool things left just to share. So we are going to do a little bit of an announcement at the end, and I'll leave that to Andrew. But before we do, Keeran, so you're going to be sharing your experience as well.
Yeah. So
last speakers.
I'm going to show my experience from being a person at the Patch My PC booth. So it's a bit different to the other guys. The other guys are MVPs. They've been speakers at these events, but I went to both Ninjas and MMS as a Patch My PC person, just being at the booth and talking to you guys. So one of the things that I learned, so I think this is clickable here, Ben, this on this slide, maybe. So there you go. So one of the things I learned just whilst driving Rudy all across Europe, he has some weird and wonderful music he wants to listen to.
Define weird.
Well, just say you had to give me a translation along the way, and I needed a beer at the end of the trip. So my recommendation to you is, if you ever get to see Rudy at an event, don't talk tech to him. Actually, go talk to him about this road trip playlist. And make sure you have a beer present for him, because you may need it for some translations.
And you don't want to miss them.
You don't want to miss them at all. It kept me entertained for 8 hours anyway, so it was good. It was good. I have it on Spotify. If you ever see me, I can share you the list. But just warn you, it's weird.
It is.
Very weird. Well, just say Whitney Houston appears randomly when you listen to some Dutch music. I don't know.
This sounds amazing.
Well, you liked it, so.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I got into the lingo quite on the way back. On the way back, I got into it.
You shared something before the webinar. You shared something really interesting, and I don't think I'd ever taken stock of this before. But you know, the toll it can take in a nice way. Keeran.
Yeah, in a nice way. I mean, it was really, really good. The event. So the next thing I was going to talk about is like these events can be multi-day events for these events like Ninjas and MMS. They can be 3 or 4 days. They're physically and mentally draining sort of thing. So my recommendation is to also pace your social battery. There's lots of things going on, not just at the event, at the end of the event, at the end of the day. These days are long. So this picture you can see in the screen was at 7:20 a.m. of day 1 at MMS. Considering the first session starts at 8 a.m., these guys are all standing by our booth, and one of the guys in the middle, Andrew, I'm going to call you out here, if he's on this call, he was given a demo of our product to these other guys who didn't even know about Patch My PC. And that's the power of the community, which is amazing. He was stood there telling them about what Patch My PC is like. He's a customer, and he was like, I said, this is great. We can stand back and enjoy the power of the community. It's brilliant. Awesome. So, like I say, the next line is the community is strong. There were lots of ducks. How many ducks did we see? So we had the Stetson ducks in Nashville. They were cool. There was a his and hers. They were very popular as usual.
Awesome. We've probably got 10 minutes just to go through the demo you want to show, if that's okay. So it might be a bit of a speed dating. Yeah. Let's go through. So the couple of things, I'm going to present some stuff on my screen now. So at Nashville and MMS and Ninjas, we showcased 2 new products in our wheelhouse, which are in private preview and should be public preview very, very soon. One of them is migration. So we'll be able to migrate and scan your apps from Configuration Manager into Intune using our CVE logic, which we've got in our CVE insights. We have to see which apps have critical CVEs based on their CVE scores they've got and any of the other scorings that we've got. I'm going to go really, really quick through this as well, so just bear with me. And then through our dashboard here, we'll be able to go and see which apps we can detect to migrate. So I'm going to come over here and change the match type to apps which we match in our catalog. And then from here, I can see from my config manager environment, I've got TeamViewer, for example, and I've got a couple of warnings here. I'm going to click on the app. And then from here, we'll be able to go and see the metadata which we pulled from Configuration Manager content. There's some warnings, there's some things that we need to pay attention for when we're going to migrate this application. We'll be able to go and see what assignments we had in Config Manager, the different deployment types, and if there was any requirements and stuff that we had in Configuration Manager. If I want to migrate this simply into our cloud portal, which will be into Intune, I hit migrate. From here, we've also detected that we're going to switch this from the old version to our new version, which is in our catalog. So not only are we migrating your application that you've got in Config Manager, but we're actually lifting it, matching the version that we got in the catalog to a newer version, which is quite cool. Not only that, we're going to bring in any customizations that you've got. So if you've got any additional command lines that you put in, if you've got any custom scripts, so this was a PSADT script. We've looked through the PSADT script. We can see you've got a post-install script, and we're going to lift this script straight into the tenant itself, which is cool.
And then you'll be able to follow our normal Patch My PC flow of, do we want to add any other bits in? Do we want to switch off the update, which is already done? Do we want to add in any of our new little bits in our portal itself? And then we can assign this to any groups we want. So we can maybe make it required, make it available, updates only, or uninstall. If you just need a reminder of what you was deploying to, we can got this button in the portal. We can see which collection you had in back in Config Manager. And then all we can do is we can make it required, for example, to our test tenant. So let's say we're going to make it to our pilot group and then hit migrate. And that will go off and migrate this to Intune itself straight away. So that's it. That's me migrated TeamViewer, and that will keep it up to date all the way through. Ben, do you have any questions on that bit before I move on to the next bit?
No, just like H1 text. So we will always try and match you to our catalog app, because then we can keep you up to date forever. So if you have any old technical debt in Config Manager, we want to get you up to date, but we want to bring across what you've pre-configured in terms of parameters and any extra files you had in the content. So Rudy, Keeran showed that. If we can't match it to a catalog app, we'll bring it across as a custom app. So Patch My PC customers should know what a custom app is if you're using Patch My PC Cloud. If you don't know what it is and you're interested, just reach out. But we will take the Config Manager app as it is if we can't match it, and bring it through our flow for Intune. But it's not just lift and shift, because as Keeran showed you, we allow you to add all the extra value in the middle as well. So amazing feature migration. We can't wait for this to come out. We're starting to roll this out in waves in private preview. So this is going to be showing up on the shop door like imminently for you to start playing with.
Yes. Yes.
And then there's another cool tool as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So the other thing we announced was reporting for Intune. So you've probably seen me on the road for the last 2 years, and we've done our reporting for Configuration Manager with Advanced Insights. And the first thing that John and I have always been asked is, what about Intune? So we showcased Advanced Insights for Intune. So we're going to have our Intune node in the portal, which will be able to go and collect Intune reported data for Configuration Manager. So this is doing a live call using the Microsoft Graph to pull in the information for this Intune tenant and be able to present you information just like you would see in Advanced Insights for Configuration Manager. Can we drill into more information? Can I go and see more information from there? Make it more navigatable. The other thing we're going to do is also introduce the Patch My PC client. So what we're going to do is be able to extend Intune's native data that we can collect from the graph and do more. So we can be able to do software update compliance with the Patch My PC catalog, collect modern OS hardware inventory data, software updates, software application data that we've got in there as well. So this is the home dashboard, which you'll get with the client. We're going to see compliance data for by updates. And then over on the updates node, we'll be able to do compliance based on the Patch My PC catalog. So we're going to introduce a catalog version so the device can do a scan against that. We can see which devices are compliant against updates in our catalog, which is cool. And then further down here, we're going to have our Patch My PC compliance per device, which you can see at the top. We've now introduced exporting, so that's in the dashboard now. This wasn't in there at Ninjas, but even at MMS it wasn't. So this is like literally got shipped into the code last week. And then we're going to have our hardware node as well. So we're going to be bringing in these little donut charts so we can pull in, say, external displays. We want to go and see which Dell monitors we've got. Let's go and click on this. Let's go and click on Blue Fox here. We can click on Blue Fox and we can see here this person or he or she has 3 monitors on the screen, and we'll be able to see which connections they're using, the size, the resolution. Really, really handy stuff. And also we'll be able to pull in the disk information, memory, all these things. When you're going in Intune, they're really difficult to navigate across. You've got to go through the different blades, or you need to go back a blade, and you can't go and see a list of all different devices at once. So we're going to show you a bit more of a presentable data set. And I think that was all I was going to talk about really, really quickly, because I know we're short of time at the end of the session today.
No, it's good. What's under the Intune blade on the left as well? There's some questions there.
Yeah. So what's under here? So we have we'll be able to show you that disk encryption, low disk space. Scroll down here, manage devices which are not encrypted. application data. So we'll be able to see like what are your managed apps that you've got in your estate, modified apps that have been modified in the last 24 hours. We can drill into this and go and see this. So this is not just Patch My PC stuff you see. This will be everything in Intune. So if you've got any other apps deployed in there, you'll be able to see that. We'll even be able to pull in that Mac app. So you'll see here, so it says all Windows and Mac managed apps. So if you've got your Macs managed by Intune, we'll be able to see that information in here as well, in the Intune blade.
I think the other popular question that I saw some threads on here is what license will this be available under?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I don't want to talk about license, but I can talk about it. It's cool. So Intune, the Intune node will fall under our Enterprise Plus license SKU. So everybody that's a customer today, not today, but when we get to GA, will be able to have access to the Intune node. When I mentioned about the Patch My PC client, which you'll be able to deploy through our portal, which to be able to go to settings and deploy the client from here. This will sit in our Enterprise Premium SKU. So we'll be hosting all this data set in our microservices. So the client data will hold on there. So it will be in Enterprise Premium.
Nice.
Was there any other questions that I need to answer?
I think every time I see this presented, it's just matured so much. And the way you just drill through the different dashboards to get to the data you need. I can't wait for this to come out in GA.
Yeah,
is this phasing out now in private preview?
It's in private preview right now. We are slowly moving into public preview soon. ETA very, very soon. That's the only one I can give you. But this is the change we're making. So, I mean, I had to switch tabs. I mean, our production version has little typos here. It was squishing the data in our dev tenant. It's fixed. So these things are changing week upon week, that we're seeing changes and improvements in the dashboards and functionalities in our reporting solution, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Reporting on Intune data. Who knew? It could be a thing.
Yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. So just one more person left. Last but not least, Andrew, you want to tell us about something that we might all get excited about?
Hello, yes. I wanted to announce, I'm waiting for the slide to show up.
Yeah, Tony, if we can share the slide again, that'd be okay.
I imagine it's just going to take 1 second. I unfortunately didn't go to either of the conferences listed, but I always have a great time at MMS. But yeah, ARM support is now in public preview for Patch My PC Cloud. So you can deploy our ARM native applications and updates from Patch My PC Cloud if you subscribe to our if you go into your preview features and enable them, you'll have access to ARM apps. You can filter them, Windows and ARM. You can configure OS requirements when you're deploying non-ARM installers. So say you're deploying a 64-bit app, but you don't want it to install on ARM devices. You can choose that when you're creating the deployment. We automatically block what apps that we know cause issues on ARM devices during the deployment. So like WebView 2, we know causes major issues. So we'll automatically make sure that 64-bit WebView 2 does not install on an ARM device. And yeah, that's my one more thing for today.
Pretty amazing. Everybody's buying ARM devices these days. And it really makes a difference, doesn't it? I remember having a conversation with Dan, like if there is an ARM variant available, you better install it because it's going to perform better on an ARM
It will
device,
perform better. We have about 50 ARM-based applications in the catalog right now. We're going to increase that dramatically during this public preview. I'm honestly using an ARM device as my daily driver now, so I feel any of the pain that customers may experience, and I'm using that experience to help drive decisions. We are working on the same feature for Publisher. We're hoping to have that in a private preview really soon and public preview shortly after.
Amazing.
I think that's us with 5 minutes to spare, Ben, and you were worried about time.
Yeah, so I think thanks everybody for sharing your experiences with those conferences. Thank you for the audience for hanging around.
Join over 8,000 organizations who trust Patch My PC to keep more than 25 million devices up to date. It's secure, automatic, and built to scale. See for yourself. Book a live demo with a Patch My PC engineer or start your free trial.